The 26th president, who served from 1901 to 1909, took a turn away from his predecessors and took the opportunity to turn the U.S. away from its natural stance in the world and have a presence on the Western Hemisphere. Being one of the first to send this trend, he altered American history forever and shaped the nation's policies as they are today. In addition to this, society had essentially been corrupted inside, and he saw it as his duty to correct it in his image. During the presidency era, he was one of the most progressive and took initiative to assist the people. Theodore Roosevelt. Roosevelt had previously assisted in the acquisition of the colonies in the Spanish-American War, and now he meant to keep them, as well as other nations under their influence. More specifically, nations in Central/South America. With the U.S. Navy, order was able to be kept in these areas should the need have come up. To Theodore, this was known as his big stick diplomacy, the big stick referring back to the Navy. Backing these ideas was the Roosevelt Corollary, which is an extension of the Monroe Document and gave the U.S. authority to have international police powers in the Western Hemisphere. These countermeasures were used to ensure that the Europeans could not set up shop near the U.S. and the market down in these areas would be easy pickings for the U.S. The ordeal in Asia threatened the trade with the fact that the open door policy was about to be null if the aggressions of the Japanese towards the Chinese did not stop. Previously, the Japanese had been in conflict with the Russians, but now there was a threat of battling against the U.S., and both sides saw it as unappealing. Therefore, they came to an agreement, known as the Takahira Agreement, where Japan would get Manchuria as well as modern-day Korea if they would keep the rest of China independent. This was seen as a victory in the eyes of diplomats, as war was averted, and American policy was able to keep going. National parks and the such were established under Roosevelt's presidency due to the fact that his favorite hunting grounds were taken away from him. Roosevelt was one of the only individuals that had a brain at the time and could see that non-renewable resources such as coal were not infinite, so he worked to conserve that as well. He knew that conservation was the only way for the U.S. to survive. Roosevelt didn't believe that businesses should run without restraints, as it would undermine the authority of the government sooner or later. A good trust was one with restraint, and should one not be, it was dissolved. Roosevelt earned the title of Trustbuster, as he was the first in a long line of presidents to interfere with the business scene of everyday life. During his career, he was able to break out over 40 trusts, not as impressive as some of his successors, but this was the first step. One of the biggest trusts that was put down were the railroads, as they charged ridiculous amounts for their fare. In order to put them into further government control, the Hepburn Act was passed so that the Interstate Commerce Commission could have direct control over the nation's railroad system by controlling their prices directly. This assisted the farmers trying to sell their crops. Just before the winter came, a strike broke out at a Pennsylvania mine, and despite not having the jurisdiction to do so, Teddy threatened the business owners with seizures of companies using the U.S. military if they did not accommodate their workers, and this is a sign of a new period, as this was the first time a president took the side of the common man instead of a business in a dispute between business and labor union. The 27th president, often said to be larger than life, was described that way due to his enormous weight and was the chosen successor of Theodore. though he would regret it eventually, as his policies did not line up directly with Roosevelt's. It was quite the contrast from the able-bodied Roosevelt and didn't live to his expectations. This was William Taft. Taft believed that businesses should operate with complete laissez-faire, which didn't practice what Roosevelt did. Due to him disappointing Roosevelt attempted to run for another term just to get Taft out of office. For the matters of the rest of the world, Taft moved away from the military approach and focused instead on using American wealth to spread its influence. By this, he took up the debt of Latin American countries and used American trade as a bargain token. An attempt to do this in China failed miserably, as railroad construction only led to Japanese dominance of the country and ended the open door policy, which Roosevelt worked so hard to protect. Muckrakers were left and right all over the progressive era, finding dirt wherever they could, and the Roosevelt didn't accept some of what they were doing. Their meddling allowed Roosevelt to fix the food industry. For example, Arthur Sinclair's The Jungle exposed how disgusting the meatpacking industry was. So, under Roosevelt, the government passed the Pure Food and Drug Act / Meat Inspection Act, which forced every company to show all their ingredients. A new government agency was created to inspect these companies every so often. Roosevelt made a big name for himself, and his memory should be celebrated, as without him some of the things we hold most dearly would not be present, and the image of the nation would not be the same.